Up next, we have Anu Bharadwaj. Anu is the Chief Operating Officer at Atlassian. Anu leads transformative projects across product lines, including the enterprise business, cloud platform teams, and operations. She's an accomplished executive with a track record of growing $1 billion plus businesses, building great teams, and shipping blockbuster products. Anu joined Atlassian in 2014 as the head of product for Jira. I'm sure a lot of us have used that. She's held a variety of roles with the company for the past 10 years. Anu is passionate about making the world a better place through technology and effective philanthropy. She's a member of OutSystems' board of directors and serves as the director of Atlassian Foundation. Let's give her a big round of applause.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to day 2 of Silicon Slopes Summit. I can't quite hear myself, so if I'm not loud enough or too loud, please just give me a shout out. My name is Anu Bharadwaj, and I'm the COO of Atlassian. It's my first time in Utah, and I'm super pleased to be here. Having lived in California for so many years, I feel like I've forgotten what it feels like to have rain. It was so refreshing to walk outside in the rain yesterday. It's been delightful. It's been a pretty long day with a lot of sessions, so why don't we start off our session nice and easy with a story? What do you think? Awesome. So 8 years ago, on a cold winter day in Australia, I woke up in my cozy little apartment. Gleaming sunshine was streaming through my windows that framed a beautiful view of the Sydney Harbour Bridge. Blue skies were everywhere. It was a bright and beautiful day. I was excited to start my day. So eager to kick off the day, I bounced out of bed to get ready for work. I bounced out of bed to get ready for work. Wait, I wasn't bouncing out of anywhere. I was not moving. My knees were frozen in place. And try as I might, I could not get out of bed. I was in excruciating pain, and I knew something was seriously wrong. And after what seemed like a Herculean effort, I dragged myself out of my apartment, hurled myself into a cab, and got to an emergency room. Once there, the doctor said I would need to be hospitalized until they diagnosed what was wrong with me. They did not have any idea on looking upon just at the first instance as to what could be wrong. I was scared. What if I could never walk again? All alone in a new country, I was terrified about what would happen to me. You see, I had uprooted myself from my home, from my family, friends, and community, and moved continents to Australia to work for this little Aussie startup. And I knew no one in Sydney. My friends and family were all back home in the US or in India. But determined to get through this ordeal, I decided to submit myself to the tests that the doctors would order on me. Before doing that, I sent a text message to my manager saying I wouldn't be coming into work today. A few hours later, I woke up in the hospital room to see the faces of 2 of my teammates wearing worried looks. They had come to check in on me with supplies, books, clothes, snacks, to tide me over what was an unexpected hospital stay. I was not friends with my teammates, not yet, but they had dropped their work to come check on me. The next day, 2 more teammates showed up. That cheered me up. Fortunately, I recovered to be able to go back home soon, but my teammates kept checking in on me, visiting me at home, helping me with chores, bringing me supplies, just making sure I was all right. I was touched by their kindness and concern. I no longer felt all alone in a foreign country. As I look back on that incident, I'm amazed at how we could have built such strong connections, such strong bonds with each other in such a short amount of time. I thought about the question of what builds these strong connections at the time, but did not dwell on it, because little did I know how important that question was going to become for our shared future. Fast forward to 2020, and the pandemic disrupted our lives in a huge way. Connections, not just with our teammates, but with our friends, with our family, were severed. It's like all of a sudden, we were all just all alone in the world. But through these dark clouds of isolation, a new way of working emerged. Technology companies continued to run well and serve customers, even though their employees could not come into a physical office every day. We learned that work is not a place. You can work out of anywhere and be productive and serve your customers. As the pandemic eased, teams were eager to meet in person again. But people had found a new rhythm of working, one that allowed them to fuse their home life and work life in a uniquely personal way. Most of them did not want to come back to office full-time. Several companies tried to solve this by forcing mandatory in-office attendance for a few days a week. But connection cannot be forced. It can only be built. Flexible work is here to stay. We're not going back to the old way of working. So those of us building companies need to figure out how we embrace this trend instead of resist it. And that's precisely what we did at Atlassian. Back in early 2020, we introduced a policy called Team Anywhere, a policy that allows our employees to work from nearly anywhere in the world with no mandated in-office presence of any kind. We think of flexible work not as remote work, but as distributed work. What's the difference? With remote work, there's an implication that there is a central headquarters of work and several other satellite places of work that are secondary around the headquarters. Whereas with distributed work, by design, it does not have a central locus of work, but equally weighted multiple options of where you can get your work done from. Since Team Anywhere, our people moved away from cities where our offices were at a surprising rate. We had people spread out to smaller cities and towns like Boise, Kanpur, and Ankara to join new communities and pursue new interests. We also had nomads that spent time in exotic locations like Mexico, Hawaii, and Finland, moving from place to place, enjoying the change of scenery. In fact, a PM on my team moved right here to Salt Lake City. Team Anywhere gave our employees the chance to pursue their dreams unfettered while continuing to work in a job that they enjoy at Atlassian. And it allowed us as a company to scale globally, reaching talent that we could not reach before. So looking at this proliferation of distributed teams, you'd think, oh, awesome, this was all roses and ribbons for Atlassian then. But 2 years ago, a good chunk of our employees were very skeptical about the Team Anywhere policy. Many of them were worried about a loss of connection. The newer workforce despaired that they would never have the kind of relationships that old-timers had built up over many, many years together. Their fears were not unfounded. The crux of the problem with distributed work really comes down to human connection. But how do we solve that problem? We did what any classic product company would do. We started treating Team Anywhere as a product that needs innovation and serves customers, just that in this case, the customers happen to be our own employees. As someone that has spent 15 years and still being very much a product person at heart, I found this approach to be very effective and innovative. It allowed us to run experiments, to create a roadmap and milestones, and figure out what was working and what was not. We knew we couldn't get everything right. Nobody had a playbook to figure out how to connect thousands of employees who suddenly had to start working from home. But we did have some ideas that we knew we could put into experiments, run a bunch of surveys to ask teams how they were doing, look at other metrics in terms of engagement, individual well-being, team effectiveness, and chart those trends and see how we could react to those trends as they moved up or down. The build, measure, learn loop was vital for us to figure out which of our ideas and hypotheses worked and which did not. Think back on some of the deepest connections that you've had at work. What did they have in common? We think that deep connections require three things in common: shared experiences that are meaningful, believing in a shared purpose, and being part of a shared community. These three are foundational elements of building strong connections, which are really at the crux of solving the distributed work problem. As we pursued our build, measure, learn loop, V1 of our product of Team Anywhere involved, like many of you have experienced in your own companies, a lot of mechanics and logistics. We were trying to figure out, hey, what are tax laws, compensation policies, home office equipment policies? How can we help employees get back into a fitness routine if they're not at office, and what kind of options can we offer for that? What are real estate decisions we have to make? All of those mechanics that we covered in V1 of our product were important, but not the hardest problems to solve. As we contemplated V2 of the product, as the pandemic eased and more normalcy returned, we really doubled down on the aspect of building meaningful connections that foster trust and collaboration in high-performing teams. Shared experiences in an office occur serendipitously. You meet people in the corridor, you run into them in the elevator. As you're getting out of office, you grab a bite to eat, or you share a meal at lunchtime. But when you're not in the same physical space, does it still make sense to have serendipitous connections? When people go to far-flung corners of the country, of the world, there are several regional groups that start to form. In fact, there's about 50 Atlassians in Utah State now, whereas we didn't have anybody at the beginning of the pandemic. So these 50 people, they're not really working on a single team day to day, but is there value in bringing them all together? I arrived in Salt Lake City yesterday. Like I said, it's my first time in Utah, so I didn't know any Atlassians here. But I sent out a note last week and said, hey, I'm coming to Silicon Slopes. If folks are available, I would love to hang out for a dinner. And to my delight, a dozen Atlassians showed up last night, and we had a dinner at a restaurant. And many of them had not met each other either. So it was the first time that a lot of us were meeting each other in person, and the sense of bonding was palpable. Conversations there ranged from our families, our pets, to company strategy and goals. And a bunch of them educated me about Utah Jazz and why that's so important. And it was fun to talk about company history and company culture. We discussed a meme that we have of Jason Statham dancing, a meme that's like a private joke inside Atlassian. Or we talked about how we have custom emojis and stories of Atlassian's history, fun stories that we lovingly call Cheesegate, when an employee asked a bunch of our workplace experience people for different kinds of cheese and was outraged that we only had one kind of cheese called Tasty Cheese in Australia. So he asked what kinds of cheese you have, and they said, we have Tasty Cheese. He was like, well, I know it's tasty, but what kind is it? And it's really just Tasty Cheese in Australia. So sharing these kinds of stories about the company, fun anecdotes, really help build a sense of togetherness. We don't have to work with each other on a team day to day, but there was clearly a steel thread of connection across the entire group that met. So shared experiences are possible in a distributed world. They just require a little more intentional design and planning. One of our key hypotheses in the build, measure, learn loop with distributed work was that there are activities that take synchronous time and activities that take up asynchronous time. So one of our prime theses was to convert as many activities that take synchronous time into asynchronous activities. That would help free up a lot of valuable synchronous time across distributed teams. What does that mean? When you think of a task, you can complete it asynchronously in a distributed way by yourself, like doing a code review, making a chicken, or doing a strategy share out. You can publish a post. But there are activities that are better done synchronously. When there's a misunderstanding, resolving conflict, converging on a plan, on a roadmap for a product, talking to customers about specific updates that we've released and seeking feedback and trying to weave that all into one single plan. What we've done over time is we've tried to convert as many activities as possible in the second bucket to those in the first bucket. And because we place such a high bar on the use of synchronous time, we replaced a bunch of async activities like status updates, for example, with activities that you can just get done asynchronously so you save time together for more valuable and creative activities. One of the ways we innovated in this particular area was that we built ourselves a new product called Atlas, which basically eliminates the need for status meetings with roll-up async updates across all teams. It's like reading a series of tweets across different project teams and doing a meaningful roll-up across all of those projects so people don't have to sit in multiple status meetings but are able to get information asynchronously. Atlas clearly lays out who's working on which project, how it connects to company goals, and clearly documents the why, what, and how behind every project. We use Atlas ourselves, and a lot of our distributed customers use it to save themselves a lot of synchronous time. When forming a team, we cluster people around a 4-hour time zone band. This is important so that people have the reassurance that their team is available for them for at least half of the day. We call these time zones halos. Synchronous time becomes more precious in a distributed setting. So when teams do get together, we ask them to be, one, really intentional about why they're getting together and what they hope to do. Do you have an active host? Do you have clear outcomes? Do you know who you're inviting to this group? Are they the right people? Do you have everybody you need? Do you have the right people that you need? What's the group size? Second, we offer a bunch of workplace experience services, like figuring out the location, figuring out meals, figuring out an active host, managing budget, all of that, so employees can focus on the creative and social aspect of gathering together. And third, and perhaps one that most people find funny when they listen to it, is that we mandate that when people get together in real life, they spend at least half of their time on fun activities. It's strange for a company to say, you will have fun for at least half the time. But the reason for that guideline is that we strongly believe that building social bonds, knowing each other holistically, fully as people, is really important as a foundation to build trusted relationships so that you can resolve conflict, you can work in high-stakes, creative situations together. And it's worth taking that time to build those long-term relationships. Which leads us to my most asked question that I get a lot of the times: will you shut down your offices? When we thought about it, it was clear that the answer is no. In fact, we're doubling down and building more of our offices in places where we believe there's a need for people to get together, where there's a demand for in-person gathering. We recently unveiled an office in Austin, which was redesigned and purpose-built with distributed work in mind. We have a Sydney headquarters, which is being designed in very much the same way. So what does custom build for distributed work mean? There are meeting booths that people can take some alone time and deep work time in. There are inspired spaces for gathering together where people can relax or do creative ideation or activities that require people to really come together in person. And recording rooms for creating content that can be distributed offline. Or technology, like the Zoom technology that allows people to gather in a meeting room, but every participant gets a Zoom window of their own so that everyone in a given meeting starts from a level playing field. For us, we don't see Team Anywhere as some kind of mechanism to save real estate cost, but really as an opportunity to reimagine what the best experience for distributed work could be like. Second, shared purpose. Another story. A few summers ago, I was leading a company-wide transformation for Atlassian, one that involved shifting our business model from on-premise to a cloud-based hosted SaaS offering. What this meant was I had to go tell the sales and channel team that they had to completely change their well-practiced GTM motion of many years and start selling our customers new SaaS products instead. This was a big change, and it was a big ask. So this was a tough sell to a sales team. And I'm an engineer, I'm not a salesperson. So I was nervous about really pitching a sales pitch to a sales team. But to share this change of direction, I landed at the company sales kickoff at Amsterdam, where hundreds of our sales and channel people had gathered. We had scaled rapidly as a company, and I did not know most of them personally. I sat down nervously at the dinner table and with some of them, and the conversation turned to the latest purchase that we had all made that we were very excited about. So people around the table were sharing what their latest purchase was that they were excited and wanted to share with the rest of the room, rest of the table. So the woman at the head of the table told us about her vacation home in the woods of California and how she can't wait to spend her summer there. The man next to her was so proud of his sailboat, and he had already taken several friends on trips in it. While the person next to me waxed poetic about their new sports car that was all the rage in Europe. When it came to my turn, I shared what I was so excited about that I had recently bought. It was a textbook on the evolutionary history of slime molds. I was so excited to go read about slime molds. And I was talking about this at the dinner table. Let's just say that killed the dinner table conversation. Perplexed and feeling like a fish out of water, I went back to my room and I called up our head of sales, our then president, Jay Simons, and I said to him, Jay, I need to go give this crowd a talk tomorrow, asking them to completely change their sales motion. I have nothing in common with them. I don't think they're going to listen to me. I don't think they're going to look at some random person coming from engineering, reading textbooks on fungus, telling them, here's what your sales motion should be. Jay laughed heartily at that anecdote, and he told me, no, I don't think you have nothing in common with these people. Think back. You and them and all of us are really bound by a shared purpose of serving our customers. As a company, we've decided that the future is going to be in cloud. And what the sales team wants to do is the best thing for customers, which is land them in the future. And as the R&D team heads towards the direction of cloud, it's important that we land customers where the innovation is going to be. And that place is cloud. So when you remind them of your shared purpose of serving customers, I'm sure you will find common ground. And he was right. The next day, when I referenced our shared purpose of serving customers, of landing them in the best place possible for the best experience they'll have with Atlassian, our sales team responded to that call beautifully. So a shared purpose can go a long way in establishing connection, even when you've never met the other person or seemingly have nothing in common with them. One of the things we've learned over and over again in the distributed world is that we need to over-index on establishing shared purpose. We do this in a few ways. One big way is a strong writing culture. Just as the printing press really changed the way we communicate knowledge and scale the bounds of human knowledge beyond one person verbally passing it down to another, a strong writing culture can scale the culture of your company beyond one central office. At Atlassian, our company history, mission, values, strategy, plans, they're all written down and embedded into every new hire onboarding plan in Trello. Every quarter, we put out a State of the Union update from the CEOs. We organize monthly AMAs, or Ask Me Anything, with our exec team, and weekly all hands featuring our customers. This is live streamed all over the world across all of our teams. And we are mindful about sharing this content in multiple formats: video recordings, podcasts to listen on the go, and blogs for people who prefer text over media. Products like Loom, Miro, Trello make this easy to share information with our employees in formats that work best for them. But as we scale, we also need to verify that the shared purpose continues to resonate. So we needed a way to verify if, as we've scaled and grown as a company, our employees continue to feel connected to that shared purpose. Do they understand why they're doing this project and how that connects to the overall company mission or goals? To help with that, we use an Atlassian practice called Team Health Monitor, where teams can self-assess their understanding of how the work they do contributes to the shared mission of their company. The Health Monitor is a way for teams to understand their own strengths and weaknesses and help act on it if they find that a shared purpose is lacking or any of the 8 attributes we've identified on team effectiveness has been lacking on their teams. So that was shared purpose, which brings us to the last segment, shared community. One of our company values at Atlassian is called open company, no bullshit. We're an Australian company, we swear a lot. So in our company values, we have quite a few swear words. But one of the ways the company value of open company is lived is that almost everything we work on is shared openly on Confluence. Confluence, if you're not familiar, is an Atlassian product which is kind of like a wiki or a company intranet which facilitates multiplayer collaboration. Confluence is a central source of truth and keeps everyone organized and aligned, and everything at Atlassian gets written down, whether it's a product plan, a customer interview, a project plan, personal updates, everything goes on the company intranet hosted on Confluence. When I first encountered this at Atlassian, I had no idea how to make sense of this. You see, I had come from spending 10 years at Microsoft, where I was taught to pore over my work, produce multiple drafts of a document of anything that I was doing until it was just perfect enough to share with the world. But here at Atlassian, they were asking me to do the reverse. They were asking me to put my work in progress out there on Confluence before I deemed it perfect. At first, it felt awkward to me. I felt vulnerable sharing my work in progress with an entire company when I knew that, hey, this is not yet perfect. But what I discovered once I started to do that was this facilitated openness and collaboration to a degree that I'd never experienced before. I would share a page on Confluence, and somebody in the other corner of the company who had never met me but had worked on a similar problem before was able to offer advice or spark a new idea. Or somebody that's more interested in a similar theme could actually come up to me and say, hey, why don't you and I work on this together? Serendipitous collaboration was made really easy. And Confluence made collaboration the default option, not something that you had to think and plan and write multiple drafts and prepare for a grand event. So Confluence made collaboration the default. And as I learned to share more and more of my work in progress on Confluence, it was also apparent that my teammates and my coworkers would make my work better. It created a sense of psychological safety that sharing work in progress was okay. Your teammates would actually help make your work better together. So Confluence made collaboration safe. And this culture of sharing openly in a safe space wasn't restricted to just work. Atlassians would blog on Confluence about personal moments they wanted to share with their team, a road trip, or baby pics, or movie reviews. Over time, people also shared stories about their hardships, struggles with mental health, divorce, or death of loved ones. Through Confluence, Atlassians were able to connect with each other in a wholesome and meaningful way and feel like they can bring their true and authentic selves to work. The outpouring of love and support for one another came to define the Atlassian culture just as much as our spirit of collaboration did. As we've expanded to fully distributed teams, Confluence has continued to be the home for our shared Atlassian community, no matter where in the world they're physically located. So that's it. These are some things that we have learned as we build, measure, learn our way to successfully connecting 8,000 distributed Atlassians. To recap, think about intentionally designing shared experiences. What can be done async versus sync? And how do you design in-person gatherings with intention? Second, teams coalesce around a shared purpose, even when they've never met. So cascade shared purpose through a writing culture. Record and repeat your strategy over and over again and verify that everyone across the company understands the why. And third, build a shared community that requires trust and psychological safety and fosters more of that. Using culture-shaping products like Confluence helps build a strong and wholesome community across the company. And finally, this is really a process of continuous learning. It's absolutely important to keep those build, measure, learn loops going, because none of us really know how it needs to be done. We're all learning as we go. 2.5 years after introducing Team Anywhere, we're now at over 8,800 employees, with over 25% of all employees and 50% of new hires living more than 2 hours away from a physical office. In fact, over the last 2 years, we've hired 3,800 new employees into Atlassian, many of who have never set foot in any physical office at all. We are running the world's biggest social experiment on distributed work. And we started it earlier than any other company our size. Why? Because this is really important to us as a company that's building collaboration products. This is vital to our fabric as a company because we strongly believe that distributed work is the future. It's here to stay. And the best way to invent the future is to live the future ourselves. So as we go along that journey, we have learned a lot of lessons. And we've also seen enormous benefits from operating as a distributed workforce. We knew that great talent existed everywhere, but with Team Anywhere, we've unlocked more new places and sources that we can access talent from. In fact, we've partnered with several organizations over the 2 years. One of them is called Talent Beyond Boundaries, which helps Afghan refugee women who are pre-qualified to get exposed to job opportunities across the company. By doing reskilling jobs, especially in product management, we've done these in Australia and a couple countries, it really helps us find candidates from sources that we would not have tapped before, helping us build a more diverse Atlassian. So let's actually hear from our Atlassians as to how Team Anywhere feels like now. Can we play the video, please?
Hey, my name is Karima.
My name is Kevin.
I'm Diksha.
This is Russell, and this is our Team Anywhere story.
This is my Team Anywhere story.
And this is my Team Anywhere story. You know, the old way of working, that was designed by some other people who I don't know. And we've just been all going through inertia and working that way. So Team Anywhere is our chance to build the new work roles.
I've decided to switch on to hybrid mode and come to the office once or twice a week. I really appreciate the flexibility that I have working from home and being able to organize my day between my morning meetings with Sydney and afternoon chats with San Francisco.
I use those commute hours to, instead of crowding into BART, to take Tilly to the beach every day.
It is a lot more fun working with picturesque mountains in the background.
Team Anywhere has allowed us to have great access to all kinds of alternate adventures, and it's a great reason to be in Atlassian.
As a new mom, working from home really enables me to get all my work done, as well as ensure that I don't need to miss out on my kids' milestones, her first crawl, her first walk.
I've got some very cute coworkers.
We can really think about ways of using Team Anywhere, to our advantage, to bring our work and our home lives together so that, we enjoy what we're doing and do a good job. So thank you, Team Anywhere.
So to end with the beginning, I take you back to the hospital in Sydney when I was contemplating my future with worry, but my teammates made me feel like I was no longer all alone in a foreign country. Human connections like those are precious and worth building. I hope the lessons that we learned with Team Anywhere help you build those kinds of strong connections with your teams as well, helping your team grow closer together while being apart. Thank you.